Alright, welcome back to the Lua introduction, and in this lecture we're going to talk about loops. Now what are loops? Basically, if we have a certain part of the code or the script that we want to execute multiple times after one another, maybe with different, let's say, numbers associated with it, we can use loops for that. And it's basically a way of doing something over and over again without, continuing to write this down. So we could imagine that maybe we want to print out numbers from, 10 to 0, let's say, or 10 to 1, and writing, print not 10, print 9, and so on. That's just not very feasible, especially maybe we want to do that, 100 times in our code somewhere, because we want to count down from 10 to 0. And yeah, that's what loops are for, and we're going to look at the first type of loop. That is going to be a for loop. And a for loop basically works like this. First of all, we're going to write the for keyword, and then we're going to initialize after it a variable called I. This is just going to hold, let's say 1 right now. And then we're going to say 10, and then we're going to say 1. And then we use the keyword do, hit enter, and then an end is once again generated automatically, and the indent as well. And here we're going to print I. Okay, what does this do? Well, let's just make a comment here. So the idea is that this loop starts at 1, right? So it starts at this number that we have specified here, this I. Then it ends at 10, okay? Because this is this number that we've specified. And it increases by 1. And this is this number that we specified. So if we play this right now, or if we run this right now, what's going to happen is it's going to print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on until we hit 10. So let's do this. Let's hit run. As you can see, if we make this bigger a little bit, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exactly how we imagined it. And you can, of course, modify this as well. So we can say, for example, a 2 here, right? Well, maybe not a 12, how about a 2? And if we do this, then it's going to do 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. Yeah, so this is the basic for loop. And as you can see here, you can also access this I inside of the loop. This I is not accessible outside of the loop, by the way. So this is automatically a local variable. This is why we don't need to write local in front of it. And so there's another type of loop, which is the while loop. And it is similar, but also different. So let's say we have a local variable called x here. And we can say, well, while x is smaller or equal to 10, so while this is true, right, we're going to do something, and what we're going to do is this, whatever is written inside of this while here. And we're going to print out, let's say something like while, so that we know where this comes from, and x, so we want to print out x. And then each time we go through this while loop, we're going to just increase x by 1. And then in the end, maybe we're going to say, well, you know what? If x is equal to, let's say, 7, right? Then we're going to break and put an end here. Now, this is just an inline if statement. Usually it would look something like this. But we can also write it all in one line, because in this case, we're not doing anything crazy in here. We're just calling the break keyword. And I'm going to quickly explain after we've seen what this does, what's going on here. So let's just run this and see what happens. So as you can see, when we go up here, while 3, while 4, while 5, and while 6. So how does that work? Well, the idea is that we have a variable with x equals 3. Now this variable is asked basically as a Boolean statement, hey, is x smaller or equal to 10? If that is the case, then everything inside of this while loop here is executed, and this is done as long as this is true. So if I were to, for example, get rid of this, this would run forever. So this would then be an infinite loop. It's highly advisable to try to avoid infinite loops because, well, they're just it's good to not use infinite loops. Well, I mean, they can crash the program, basically. That is possible. So always make sure, especially when you use while loops, that there's some sort of exit criterion. For example, this break here. We wouldn't need this break, because as soon as x would be 11, this is no longer true. Then, of course, we would exit the while loop. However, this is, let's say, a premature exit with this break, because we can use this break keyword inside of loops, either in the for loop or the while loop. And then we can, and this simply means, okay, we're going to break out of the loop. So we're immediately going to hit end, and then we're going to continue. So those are for loops and while loops. And there's another type of loop, which is the repeat loop. Now, it's actually very similar to the while loop. We put in the word repeat, and when we then hit enter, actually the keyword until gets generated. And let's say, for example, we want to print x again, and here we actually increase x by 2, and we say until x is bigger than 20. So this actually reads like a normal sentence almost, right? Repeat whatever's in here until this, right? So let's see what happens, and exactly what you probably would expect. So 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, and 19 gets printed out. Now we start at 7 because, remember, we have exited this while loop when x was 7. Therefore, we print out 7. We add 2, so then it's 9, and so on and so forth, until x is bigger than 20. And then this loop gets broken, and we are, we continue with the rest of the program, basically. Yeah, and that is all with loops. So they are really useful, and they can be really powerful as well. And going forward, we're going to see a lot of uses for them in the future. But for now, that was it. If there are any questions, of course, feel free to ask, and I'll be sure to respond. And yeah.